Today we are doing a very special recipe. This is my spaghetti sauce, my famous spaghetti sauce. Well, it's nothing like what you would find in Italy. It's nothing like a typical bolognese sauce. What it is a sauce that I invented when I was 12 years old and trying to figure out how to make spaghetti for the very first time. I lived in Hawaii, I grew up there. We really didn't have very good Italian food, and so I didn't know what Italian food was supposed to taste like. But I created this sauce, which turned out to be really good. It's evolved over the years. It's been about 40 years now, and over time it's gotten better and better and better. Now when I make it, people go nuts over it. They all want to know how to make it. I have lots of people who wander around with that sauce. I'm going to make it for you. If you make it, I will guarantee you nobody else will make anything that tastes anything like this, so you should definitely try it. Start off with some ground turkey. You can use ground beef. At the moment I'm using ground turkey for it. It doesn't matter. Either one is good. So let's put that in there. And you want to start out by seasoning the meat before you make the sauce. I am putting in to about a pound of ground turkey. I'm putting in roughly 2 tablespoons of oregano. I'm using dried onions, dehydrated onions. I'm going to put in about 3 tablespoons of dried onions to it. And then I'm going to put in garlic powder. For the garlic powder, I'm going to use roughly 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. And that is what you mix into the meat, and then you're going to let the meat sit at least an hour before you cook it. Okay, so that's all mixed in. We're going to stick it in the fridge, let it sit there for an hour, let the meat absorb all the flavors. Actually, I had a German cousin who tried that meat, not with the turkey, with beef. She tried it raw and she said, "Oh, this is great. I'm going to have this as a steak tartare." Well, we're not making steak tartare here. I frankly find that disgusting, but you know, you can do it if you want. And come back in about an hour and we'll make the sauce. All right, it's been about an hour. So now we're going to take our meat out of the fridge, we're going to put it in the pot, and we're going to brown it a little bit. Now just so you know, when I first invented this recipe, I was on Weight Watchers, so I did this without using any oil. Nowadays, if you want, you can use a little bit of oil. You can brown whatever the meat is in the oil. You're going to put in some onion and garlic. You can brown that in oil. I don't do that. I just throw everything in, and it works out just fine. So the first thing to do, get your meat out of the fridge, throw it in the pot. You want to break it up and saute it a little bit. Get it brown in little pieces. So I'm putting this over medium heat. And now you want to just let it get brown. You want it into little chunks. Okay, while the meat's browning, I've got some dried porcini mushrooms here. I love the taste of porcinis. They really give a nice complexity to the sauce. Mine are dried, so I'm going to want to reconstitute them. Young doesn't like the giant pieces of porcini mushroom in here, so what I do is I reconstitute them in very hot water, and then I chop them up so we have small pieces, but we still have the flavor. So there we go. That's all set. As you see, the meat is pretty well cooked at this point, so you want to throw in tomato sauce. Now you can either use regular tomato sauce and maybe a half can of tomato paste. I like to use pasta sauce because it's easier, but you really don't need it for the flavor. You can, but this just makes it easy. Just dump the whole thing in, and then let's dilute that with a little water because you don't want to cook this down. So use an equal amount of water to the sauce that you did. Now it's time to make the sauce taste good. First you want to put in garlic. How much garlic? Enough garlic to choke a donkey. Or maybe that's a little silly. I don't know that you could ever get a donkey to eat garlic. So I'm going to use 4 cloves. That's probably good enough. And I like to use a garlic press. You can also chop it up by hand if you want. That's too much work. I'm lazy. Hey, what the heck? Let's use the garlic press. I've been using it since I was a kid. All right, more flavoring. This is not in traditional spaghetti sauce, but this is in my spaghetti sauce. Worcestershire sauce. How many? About 4 dashes. There you go. Oregano. I'd say I'm using 2 tablespoons of oregano because that's a very prominent flavor in this sauce. Then maybe about a teaspoon of basil. Now because I'm using turkey, I'm going to use some Better Than Bouillon beef paste to get it a sort of beef flavor. And I'm using about maybe a teaspoon of that in there. Now I'm going to use a whole onion, but Young's going to chop it up. Okay, so Young chopped up the onions. I threw it in there. She also chopped up the mushrooms, and now I'm going to put them in there. Also, the water I used to soak the mushroom. The porcini mushrooms have a nice umami taste to them, and so throwing in the mushrooms and the water add that umami taste into the sauce. And you're going to cook this down until it's thick anyway, so it works out pretty well. I'm going to add in a tablespoon of xylitol. Now, normally if you were not on keto, you would add in about a tablespoon of sugar. Actually, I'm going to do in about a tablespoon and a half. You would ordinarily add in a tablespoon of sugar, but since we're on keto, we're not adding any sugar into this dish. Instead, we have the xylitol. The reason for that is it cuts the sourness of the tomatoes. It makes this sauce smoother, and it makes it much tastier. Now, Young's Korean. She likes spicy. So in almost everything I cook, I make it spicy. Here, I'm adding in red pepper just to up the spiciness of the sauce. This is optional. That's about a teaspoon. Because while Young likes it spicy, I don't like it too spicy. So it's got to be somewhere in the middle between really spicy and kind of mild. My brother could not handle it, even as spicy as I just made it. He doesn't like anything with spice on it. In fact, if I put pepper in something, he'll sit there and go, and so you always have to be wary of the people you're cooking for and make sure you know their tastes. Now another thing I'm putting in here, I'm showing my Hawaii roots, is a little Ajinomoto. That's MSG. If you have accent, you can put that in. That was about maybe about a quarter to a half a teaspoon of it. Again, it ups the umami presence of the sauce. It makes it taste really good. And then something I started adding in recent years is white truffle oil. If you like the flavor of truffles, this will really enhance the dish. If you don't, this will make it taste terrible, so don't put it in there. I put in just about a teaspoon of white truffle oil. Also, add in roughly a half a cup of red wine. You want it to be a good red wine, but it doesn't have to be your most spectacular red wine. I always think alcohol in a dish makes it taste better. And most of the alcohol boils out when you're cooking it anyway, although they have found recently that some of the alcohol still stays. So you're not boiling all the alcohol off, but you're boiling some of it off. Now finally, a little bit of Parmesan cheese. When I'm using turkey instead of beef, I like to make it a little more complex, and so we're throwing in a little Parmesan cheese too. That's about 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. Now you want to taste it to make sure it tastes right, and then you want to boil it down until it gets a little thicker. I just got some of the pepper. Okay, that's good. We need to boil it down a bit. Okay, so if you take a look at the sauce now, you'll see it's been cooking about probably 45 minutes and it's gotten nice and thick. I guarantee you it's going to be as tasty or even better than it looks. I put in some bay leaves. That wasn't on the original thing, but we have a bay tree outside. I love bay leaves in my spaghetti, so I put 2 bay leaves into this sauce. Also, as far as the noodles to put it over, on keto you can't have regular noodles. We like these black bean noodles. They're about 8 grams of carbohydrates per serving, and a serving is a 2-ounce serving. Or you can put them over zoodle, which is zucchini cut into noodle shapes. Or you could actually put it over cabbage. That would be fine. It depends how strict you want to be. But you can stay within a good keto limit. 8 grams of net carbs is not that much on a keto diet, and that's what we're doing. So we're ready to go. I already know how this tastes. It's amazing. I can eat this 3, 4, 5 days a week and I can be perfectly happy with it. The sauce is spicy. It's got a lot of nice flavor to it. It's got a real garlicky tinge and the oregano in there. Works out good. The noodles, the texture of the noodles for a keto noodle is really good. Really like mine with cheese on it. You don't need cheese. You can use Parmesan cheese if you want. You can use Monterey Jack cheese. I use a mixture of Monterey Jack and cheddar. It's delicious.